In this episode, we're going to make the exam itself feel a lot less mysterious by breaking down what scoring really rewards, what policies can trip people up, and how to approach questions in a way that consistently earns points. A lot of beginners study the content and still feel anxious because they do not know how the test behaves, how strict the rules are, or what happens when they get stuck. That uncertainty turns into wasted energy on test day, and it also leads to study time that feels busy but not strategic. The goal here is to replace guesswork with a clear mental model of how professional exams are built and what they are trying to measure. Once you understand that model, you can practice smarter, read questions more calmly, and make decisions that protect your score even when you are not 100% sure. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. To start, it helps to remember what kind of certification this is and what the exam is designed to confirm about you. A qualified security assessor, QSA, is expected to be fair, evidence-minded, and consistent, which means the exam is not mainly a memory contest. It is much closer to a judgment test, where the best answer is the one that reflects the role's responsibilities under real constraints. That is why scoring usually favors choices that are defensible, scope-aware, and tied to verification rather than opinion. Even if you have never taken a professional certification exam before, you can still learn the pattern. Questions tend to be written so that one option is clearly wrong, one is tempting but incomplete, one is overconfident, and one matches the assessor mindset. Your job is to learn to spot which option best matches that mindset, because that is what the scoring is built to reward. Now, let's talk about scoring rules without getting lost in technicalities, because what matters most is how scoring shapes your behavior while you answer. Most certification exams are designed so that each question is scored independently, which means you do not earn extra points for spending 5 minutes on a single difficult question if it causes you to rush later. The scoring system generally does not care how confident you felt. It only cares whether you selected the best answer among the choices provided. That simple fact leads to a powerful strategy. Protect your time budget, because running out of time is one of the easiest ways to lose points you could have earned. If you treat every question like a courtroom argument you must fully litigate, you will burn time, second-guess yourself, and often perform worse. A winning approach is steady, consistent decision-making that keeps you moving while still being careful. Policies matter because they create boundaries around what you can do before, during, and after the exam, and those boundaries exist to keep the credential credible. The Payment Card Industry Security Standards Council, PCI-SSC, ecosystem takes exam integrity seriously because this certification supports trust in payment security assessments. That means you should expect strict rules around confidentiality, prohibited materials, and behavior at the testing environment, whether you test online or at a center. A beginner mistake is treating these policies like annoying fine print, but they can become real consequences if you ignore them. There are also ethical policies that matter long before test day, especially around how you study and what resources you use. If you train yourself using material that focuses on memorized answers instead of real understanding, you might feel faster in practice, but you are building a fragile skill that collapses when the wording changes. One of the most important exam tactics is learning to recognize what a question is truly asking before you look at the answers. Many wrong answers are not completely false in the real world. They are just wrong for the specific question being asked. The exam often tests whether you can distinguish between assessing and improving, between verifying and designing, and between documenting and implementing. If the question asks what evidence is needed, the correct answer will be about proof, not about building a new control. If the question asks what to do first, the correct answer will respect sequencing, not jump to the most advanced step. If you train yourself to identify the question type, you stop being pulled around by options that sound impressive. This is one of the biggest ways to unlock points, because it aligns your thinking with how scoring is constructed. Time management becomes much easier when you accept that uncertainty is normal and that you can still score well without feeling perfect. A strong test taker is not someone who never doubts, but someone who can make a reasonable decision and move on without spiraling. When you hit a hard question, aim for a short internal process where you anchor yourself to the role. What is the safest defensible conclusion based on what is presented, and what choice most clearly reflects verification and scope awareness? If two answers look plausible, look for the one that uses stricter logic, such as requiring confirmation, tying to documented evidence, or avoiding assumptions. If an answer depends on facts not provided, it is often a trap that the scoring expects you to avoid. This kind of disciplined reasoning is a major differentiator because it prevents you from donating points to attractive guesses. Another tactic that consistently helps is using elimination in a structured way instead of eliminating based on vibes. First, remove any answer that contradicts the assessor posture, such as an answer that relies on trust without verification or that claims certainty without evidence. Next, remove any answer that solves a different problem than the question asked, like jumping to remediation when the question is about assessment conclusions. Then look at what remains and compare them based on completeness and defensibility, not based on which one sounds more secure in an abstract sense. This is also where paying attention to words like confirm, validate, review, and document can help you, because those words map closely to assessment behavior. The scoring is usually built to reward the option that would hold up if someone reviewed your work later. If you imagine having to defend your choice to a skeptical reviewer, the weaker options start to feel fragile. It is also worth understanding that exam writers commonly use realistic distractions to test your focus. They might include details that feel urgent but do not change the decision, or they might describe a technology just to create texture. Beginners often chase those details and miss the real hinge of the question, which is usually scope, evidence, or sequencing. A helpful habit is to pause after reading the question and identify what information is actually being used to make the decision. If a detail does not affect scope or evidence, it might not matter. This does not mean you ignore details. It means you stop treating every detail as equally important. On test day, that ability to separate signal from noise protects both time and accuracy. Over time, you will notice that many questions are testing whether you can stay anchored to the core responsibility even when the narrative gets busy. Policies also show up in more subtle ways, like how you should treat the exam content itself and how you should prepare ethically. A serious credential expects you to respect confidentiality, which is one reason you should avoid communities or materials that claim to share exact questions and exact answers. Even if that feels like a shortcut, it can put you in an uncomfortable position, and it often harms your learning because you are practicing memorization rather than judgment. The exam is designed to defeat shallow memorization by changing wording and context while keeping the underlying skill the same. If you want to win, you practice the underlying skill, not a frozen set of prompts. The best preparation materials help you explain concepts in your own words and apply them to new situations. That approach also makes you calmer because you are not relying on remembering a specific phrase that may not appear. A strong test day mindset is treating each question as a small professional decision rather than a personal evaluation of your worth. When people get nervous, they interpret a difficult question as proof they are failing, and that emotional reaction can cause rushed reading and careless errors. Instead, treat difficulty as normal and expected, because exams must include challenging items to differentiate levels of readiness. If you can answer the easy and medium questions cleanly, you build a buffer that reduces the pressure when you hit a tough one. That is why your tactics should protect accuracy on the questions you can get right, rather than sacrificing those points to chase perfection on a single confusing item. Calm performance is not about being fearless. It is about returning to a simple process every time your emotions spike. The scoring system does not reward panic, but it does reward consistency. Let's also address the way policies and tactics intersect with reading comprehension, because many exam misses are actually reading misses. A single word like best, first, most likely, or must can change the entire intent of a question. Beginners sometimes read quickly and answer the question they wish were asked, which is often a generic security question, not an assessor question. Train yourself to slow down just enough to catch those intent markers, because they guide the scoring. If you have ever been surprised by a practice question where the answer felt unfair, there is a good chance you missed a marker that narrowed the decision. On test day, those markers are your friend because they reduce ambiguity if you notice them. Your goal is not to read slowly, it is to read precisely. A related tactic is building a habit of checking your answer against the roll before you commit, especially when you feel tempted by a confident-sounding option. Ask yourself whether the answer assumes facts not provided, whether it respects scope boundaries, and whether it relies on verification rather than trust. Also ask whether it is appropriately conservative, meaning it does not claim more than the evidence supports, but it also does not avoid making a decision when one can be made. That balance is very QSA in spirit, because the work requires both rigor and clarity. Many wrong answers fail because they are too casual about proof or too aggressive about conclusions. When you can feel that difference, you will start picking the answers the scoring system expects. This is not about gaming the test. It is about demonstrating the posture the credential is meant to certify. Even your study routine can be shaped by scoring logic if you use it intentionally. Instead of only reading, spend time answering questions and then explaining out loud or in writing why the best answer is best and why the others are weaker. The explanation is where the learning happens, because it forces you to articulate the rule that the exam is scoring. If you cannot explain the difference between two close options, you have found a gap that matters. Over time, you will start noticing repeating patterns, like questions that hinge on evidence strength, sequencing, or scope definition. Those patterns are essentially the blueprint in action, and mastering them is what raises your score. When your explanations become faster and more precise, you are not just memorizing, you are building professional judgment. It is also smart to practice recovering from mistakes, because everyone makes them, and the exam does not allow emotional resets unless you create them. If you realize you misread a question, do not let that spiral into a narrative that you are doing poorly. Instead, treat it as a quick correction, then return to your process. Many high-scoring test takers are not the ones who never miss, but the ones who do not compound a miss with 2 more rushed misses. You can rehearse that resilience by doing timed practice and intentionally including some hard questions that you will not get perfectly. The point is to learn how to stay steady when you feel uncertain. That steadiness is a real skill, and it directly protects your score. To close, mastering scoring rules, policies, and winning tactics is really about learning how to demonstrate the right kind of thinking under realistic constraints. The exam rewards you for being evidence-minded, scope-aware, and careful with claims, and it punishes you for rushing, assuming, or drifting into design thinking when the question is about assessment. Policies matter because they protect the credibility of the credential, and respecting them also protects your learning by keeping you focused on understanding rather than shortcuts. Tactics matter because they help you apply what you know consistently, even when the wording is unfamiliar or the narrative is busy. When you combine a clear reading process, disciplined elimination, and calm time management, you give yourself the best chance to earn points across the entire test. If you carry one idea forward, let it be this: scoring is not random, and when you align your habits to what scoring values, you start winning on purpose instead of hoping.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.